Poor girl protects millionaire CEO from death. Her extraordinary gift left him speechless. You're the man from the pictures, Lily said, her voice carrying weight beyond her years. Blake Thornton. You make computers think. Blake crouched to her level, intrigued despite himself. That's one way to describe it. What are you drawing? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The rain struck the glass walls of Thornton Technologies like bullets from heaven, each drop exploding against the 42nd floor windows in a rhythm that matched Blake Thornton's restless heartbeat. 25 years old and worth $8 billion, yet tonight he felt hollow as an abandoned cathedral. His fingers found the worn leather strap of his father's vintage Omega, a nervous habit that had grown worse since the nightmares began. Dreams of falling, of darkness closing in, of voices calling his name from places that didn't exist. Mr. Thornton, your car is ready, his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Blake straightened his azure suit jacket, the color chosen to match his piercing blue eyes, a branding decision that had become his signature. The elevator descended smoothly, carrying him toward another sleepless night in a penthouse that felt more like a prison than a palace. The children's hospital wasn't on his usual route home. Thornton Technologies had just donated $50 million to pediatric research, and something pulled him toward the place where his money was supposed to matter. He parked his midnight Bugatti in the visitor's lot, ignoring stares from passing medical staff. The lobby hummed with after-hours activity and distant laughter from the recreational wing. That's when he saw her. 7-year-old Lily Winters sat cross-legged on the polished floor, copper curls catching the overhead lights like captured fire. Her eyes stopped Blake cold. One emerald green, the other warm amber, both holding depths that seemed impossible in someone so young. She wore a sunshine yellow dress with rainbow ribbons, carefully mended but radiating love. What struck Blake wasn't her unusual appearance or her presence in a hospital lobby at 9 p.m. It was how she looked up at him as if she'd been waiting. You're the man from the pictures, Lily said, her voice carrying weight beyond her years. Blake Thornton. You make computers think. Blake crouched to her level, intrigued despite himself. That's one way to describe it. What are you drawing? Lily's fingers tightened around her pencil. Shadows. The dark ones that follow people around. She glanced up again, and Blake felt ice crawl down his spine. Yours is very dark. It's been getting closer. A nurse in scrubs hurried over. Lily, sweetheart, you can't bother visitors. Come back to the ward. It's fine, Blake said, standing. She wasn't bothering me. Are you a patient here? The nurse, Margaret Chin, according to her badge, sighed softly. Lily's been with us 3 months. Car accident took her parents. She's been saying unusual things since she woke up. I can see when people die, Lily stated matter-of-factly, making Nurse Chin wince. The shadows tell me. They whisper about the almost times and the definitely times. Blake's blood turned to Arctic water, but he forced a gentle smile. That must be frightening. Not frightening, Lily corrected, closing her sketchbook. Sad. Because I can't always save them. She looked directly into his eyes. But sometimes I can. Her next words shattered his world. You're going to die tomorrow at 11:41 a.m. 3 days crawled by like wounded animals. Blake couldn't shake Lily Winters from his thoughts. Her mismatched eyes haunted his dreams, replacing boardroom battles with something far more disturbing. He researched childhood trauma responses, desperate to rationalize her words as grief-induced delusion. Logic crumbled when his phone screamed at 6:47 a.m. Thursday morning. Mr. Thornton? Nurse Chen's voice was tight with worry. I know this is irregular, but Lily's been asking for you. She's quite distressed and keeps saying she needs to tell you something important about today. Blake's hand flew to his father's watch. 20 minutes. The children's ward buzzed with morning chaos when Blake arrived, still wearing yesterday's clothes and reeking of whiskey he'd used to chase away sleep. Lily sat in a wheelchair by the window, her sunshine dress bright against sterile white walls. Her sketchbook lay open, filled with dark drawings that made Blake's stomach revolt. You came, she said without turning. I wasn't sure you would. Adults don't usually listen to children about important things. Blake pulled up a chair. What did you want to tell me? Lily's small fingers flipped through pages of artwork, shadowy figures, twisted shapes, accident scenes drawn in disturbing detail. Your shadow is screaming today. It knows something is coming. She stopped at a fresh drawing that stole Blake's breath. The sketch showed a man in an azure suit beside a sleek black car. Above him loomed a massive dark shape, construction equipment falling from the sky. You can't go to the Meridian District today, Lily said, her mismatched eyes reflecting wisdom far beyond her years. The building with the glass face, you're meeting there. Something heavy is going to fall. Blake's throat constricted. He did have a meeting at Meridian Tower, a crucial negotiation for acquiring a promising startup. How could she possibly know? Lily, how do you promise me you won't go, she interrupted, grabbing his hand with shocking strength. The moment their skin touched, Blake felt electricity surge through him, followed by a vision so vivid it felt like reality. He saw himself walking toward Meridian Tower's entrance, checking his watch. Construction crews worked high above. A cable snapped. A massive steel beam plummeted toward the sidewalk. Blake looked up just as Blake jerked away, gasping. Lily had gone pale, trembling slightly. You saw it too, she whispered. Sometimes that happens when I touch people. The shadows show them what they show me. That's impossible, Blake said, but his phone was already in his hand. Cancel my meeting at Meridian Tower, he told his assistant. Reschedule for next week. Sir? But this acquisition is time-sensitive. The sellers are expecting. Next week, Blake repeated, never breaking eye contact with Lily. Something's come up. Lily's shoulders sagged with relief, but her expression remained troubled. Saving you will hurt, she said quietly. It always hurts. But some people are worth the pain. Blake stared at this extraordinary child, wondering what kind of hell she'd been thrust into and what it was costing her to pull others back from the brink. The news exploded at 11:43 a.m. like a bomb detonating in Blake's chest. A construction crane at Meridian Tower had suffered catastrophic failure during routine maintenance. A 2-ton steel beam crashed through the building's lobby, obliterating the exact spot where Blake's meeting would have occurred. 3 people lay hospitalized with serious injuries. If the accident had happened 2 hours later when the building reached full occupancy. Blake sat in his office, staring at news footage on his computer screen, hands trembling like autumn leaves. He'd been scheduled to arrive at Meridian Tower at 11:30 a.m. The beam fell at 11:41 a.m., exactly when Lily said he would die. His phone erupted with messages, colleagues expressing relief about his lucky escape, investors concerned about his safety, reporters demanding statements. But all Blake could think about were Lily's words, "Your shadow is screaming today." He abandoned the office without explanation and drove straight to the hospital. Lily occupied the art therapy room, surrounded by other children but isolated as if an invisible barrier separated her from the normal world. She looked up when Blake entered, exhaustion carved into her young features like scars. You listened, she said simply. That's good. Most adults don't. Blake knelt beside her chair, voice barely a whisper. How did you know? The shadows told me. They're always telling me things. Lily set down her crayon and fixed him with those unsettling mismatched eyes. But saving you, it hurt more than usual. What do you mean it hurt? Before Lily could answer, Nurse Chun appeared at Blake's shoulder. Mr. Thornton, could I speak with you privately? They stepped into the hallway where Margaret Chen's professional composure fractured. I don't know what to make of this child, she admitted. Since the accident that took her parents, she's been different. She predicted Mrs. Rodriguez's heart attack last week, down to the exact minute. She warned us about little Timothy's allergic reaction before he'd even been exposed to peanuts. And you believe her? I didn't want to. But she's been right every single time. Margaret glanced back at the art room. The problem is every time she prevents something terrible from happening, she gets weaker. Her test results show unexplained fatigue, dropping blood pressure, irregular heartbeat. It's like saving people is literally draining her life force. Blake felt ice crystallize in his veins. What are her doctors saying? That's the mystery medically, there's nothing wrong with her. All her organs function normally, but her overall vitality is declining. If this pattern continues. Margaret didn't finish the sentence. Blake returned to Lily's side, seeing her with new eyes. The slight translucency to her skin, the way she seemed to fade around the edges as if she wasn't quite anchored to the physical world. Why do you do it? He asked quietly. If it hurts you, why do you save people? Lily picked up her crayon again, adding dark swirls to her latest drawing. Because the shadows show me 2 things, what will happen and what could happen. When I see the good what could happen, I can't let the bad what will happen win. She looked up at him. Even if it makes me tired. Blake stared at this remarkable child, realizing she was slowly dying to keep others alive and wondering how many more warnings her fragile body could survive. Blake Thornton had built his empire on patterns, algorithms, and data. If Lily Winters possessed some inexplicable ability to predict death, he was determined to understand it. He hired the best private investigators money could buy, tasking them with uncovering everything about Lily's past, the accident that killed her parents, and any medical records that might explain her condition. What they found defied every rational explanation. Lily had been born to David and Maria Winters, a struggling couple who'd worked multiple jobs to survive. David worked night security, Maria cleaned office buildings during the day. They'd lived in a modest apartment in the city's industrial district, barely scraping by but reportedly happy. The accident report painted a tragic picture. 3 months ago, the family had been driving home from Lily's 6th birthday celebration at a budget restaurant when a drunk driver ran a red light. David and Maria Winters died on impact. Lily had been in a coma for 2 weeks, and when she woke up, she was different. But the deeper Blake's investigators dug, the more questions emerged. There were inconsistencies in medical records, gaps in the timeline, and most disturbing of all, reports of similar incidents throughout history. "Look at this," Blake's head investigator, Marcus Rivera, said, spreading documents across Blake's conference table. "I found references to children with similar abilities dating back over a century. They always appear after traumatic near-death experiences, they can predict deaths with uncanny accuracy, and they all show the same pattern of declining health after each save." Blake studied the files. A boy in Victorian London who'd predicted a factory fire after surviving a building collapse. A girl in 1920s Chicago who'd foreseen automobile accidents after her own near-fatal crash. A child in 1960s Tokyo who'd warned of earthquake casualties after being pulled from rubble. What happened to them? Blake asked, though he dreaded the answer. Marcus's expression was grim. "The records are incomplete, but the pattern is always the same. The children fade away after a few months or years. Some say they died of exhaustion. Others claim they simply vanished. There has to be another explanation." "Maybe. But here's what really bothers me." Marcus pulled out a manila folder. "I interviewed hospital staff who were working when Lily was brought in. 3 of them mentioned something strange. During her coma, machinery around her kept malfunctioning. Monitors would show impossible readings, then return to normal. Electronic equipment would shut down and restart. One nurse swore she saw shadows moving around Lily's bed when no one was there." Blake's mind raced. Electronic interference, that's consistent with electromagnetic anomalies. What if whatever happened to her during the accident didn't just give her the ability to see death, but actually connected her to some kind of energy field? "You think she's tapping into something supernatural?" "I think she's tapping into something we don't understand yet. And if the pattern holds..." Blake looked at the historical files again. "We need to find a way to break it." Marcus leaned forward. "There's something else. I found one case that was different, a boy in 1890s Boston who had the same abilities. But instead of fading away, he lived to be 93. Blake's pulse quickened. What made him different? According to the records, he found someone who could share his burden. A young woman who somehow learned to see what he saw, feel what he felt. Together, they saved hundreds of lives during the Great Boston Fire. Neither of them died from the gift. Blake stared at the century-old photograph of 2 people standing together, a boy with haunted eyes and a woman whose hand rested protectively on his shoulder. "Find out everything you can about them," Blake ordered. Everything. Because if there was a way to save Lily Winters, he was going to find it. As autumn painted the city in shades of gold and crimson, Blake found himself spending more time at the hospital. What had started as scientific curiosity had evolved into something deeper, a genuine connection with a remarkable child who seemed to see the world through a lens of both terror and compassion. Lily's condition was deteriorating, though she tried to hide it behind bright smiles and cheerful chatter. Her skin had taken on an almost ethereal quality, and Blake noticed she needed more rest between their conversations. But her gift, or curse, remained as strong as ever. "Mr. Davidson in room 314 is going to have trouble breathing tonight," she told Blake during one of his visits. "But if Nurse Chun checks on him at 2:17 a.m. instead of her usual 2:30 rounds, she'll catch it in time." Blake dutifully passed along the message, framing it as his own intuition about a patient who'd seemed distressed. Sure enough, Margaret Chen's early check prevented a potentially fatal respiratory episode. "You're getting good at translating my warnings," Lily observed the next day, a knowing smile playing at her lips. "Most adults would think you're crazy if you told them a little girl predicted it." "Maybe I am crazy," Blake admitted. "But I'd rather be crazy and save lives than sane and let people die." It was during these conversations that Blake began to understand the true weight of Lily's burden. She didn't just see death approaching, she felt every loss as if it were her own family member. The shadows she drew weren't just artistic expressions, they were emotional releases, ways of processing the constant stream of mortality that flowed through her consciousness. "Do you ever see good things?" Blake asked one afternoon as they sat in the hospital's garden. "Happy futures, positive outcomes?" Lily considered this, twirling one of her copper curls around her finger. Sometimes. But the happy things don't need warnings. They just happen when they're supposed to. She looked at him curiously. Your happy things are getting brighter, though. Before you met me, your future was very gray. Now there are colors. What kind of colors? Gold, mostly. The color of helping people. And blue. The same blue as your suits and your eyes. That's the color of loyalty. She paused, her expression growing serious. But there's still darkness coming. Something big. It involves you, but not just you. Blake felt the familiar chill that accompanied Lily's predictions. When? Soon. Before the leaves finish falling. Lily closed her sketchbook and stood up, swaying slightly. Blake caught her arm to steady her and again felt that jolt of connection. This time, the vision was different. Instead of seeing his own future, he glimpsed fragments of Lily's past, the car accident, but from her perspective. He saw her parents' faces in the moments before impact, felt her terror and confusion, and then something else. A presence, vast and ancient, offering her a choice in that liminal space between life and death. You can return, a voice whispered in the vision, but you must become a guardian. You will see what others cannot, know what others will not, and bear the weight of knowledge that could save lives. But each life you preserve will cost you a piece of your own. And 7-year-old Lily, faced with the choice between death and an impossible burden, had chosen to live and to serve. Blake gasped as the vision ended, finding Lily watching him with those mismatched eyes full of ancient understanding. You saw it, she said softly. The choice I made. Blake's determination to save Lily led him down research paths he'd never imagined exploring. He funded studies into near-death experiences, consulted with theoretical physicists about consciousness and energy fields, and even reached out to religious scholars who might understand the spiritual implications of Lily's gift. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Dr. Evelyn Cross, a quantum physicist who'd been studying the intersection of consciousness and electromagnetic fields. She agreed to meet with Blake and Lily at the hospital, intrigued by the description of Lily's abilities and their apparent cost. What you're describing sounds like quantum entanglement on a biological level, Dr. Cross explained after conducting several non-invasive tests. It's as if Lily's consciousness has become connected to what we might call the probability matrix, the quantum field that determines potential outcomes. In English, please, Blake requested. Dr. Cross smiled. Think of reality as a river with multiple currents. Most of us can only see the current we're swimming in. But Lily can see all the currents simultaneously, including the dangerous ones that would drag people under. When she warns someone, she's essentially helping them swim to a safer current. But why does it drain her? Blake asked. Because she's not just observing the currents, she's actively changing them. That requires enormous energy. The question is, where's that energy coming from? Dr. Cross studied Lily's latest test results, her expression growing increasingly puzzled. This is extraordinary. Lily's brain activity shows patterns I've never seen before. It's as if she's processing information from somewhere else. The shadows, Lily said quietly. They live in the spaces between seconds, in the moments that haven't happened yet. They showed me how to look around the corners of time. The spaces between seconds, Dr. Cross repeated thoughtfully. Lily, when you see these shadows, where do you think they come from? They've always been there, Lily replied. But most people can't see them because they're too busy looking at what is instead of what could be. The accident, it didn't give me the shadows. It just broke the part of me that was blind to them. Dr. Cross turned to Blake, her expression both excited and concerned. If I'm right, Lily isn't using her own life force to change outcomes. She's channeling energy from the quantum field itself. But her body isn't equipped to handle that kind of power sustainably. So there is a way to help her? Theoretically, yes. If we could find a way to create a buffer, something to regulate the energy flow instead of letting it burn through her unchecked. Dr. Cross paused. But the technology doesn't exist yet. Blake felt his hope deflating, but Lily surprised him by speaking up. What if it's not about technology, she asked. What if it's about connection? Both adults looked at her curiously. When I touch Blake, I can share the visions with him. It doesn't hurt as much when someone else sees what I see. Maybe the reason other children like me disappeared is because they were alone. Dr. Cross leaned forward. You're suggesting that sharing the psychic load could reduce the physical cost? The shadows are very heavy when you carry them by yourself, Lily said simply. But Blake makes them lighter. Blake felt something click into place. That's why I've been drawn to you, isn't it? Not just curiosity or coincidence. We're meant to be connected. The shadows chose you too, Lily confirmed. They showed me your face before I ever met you. They said you were the one who could help me carry the weight. Dr. Cross was frantically taking notes. If there's a genuine psychic connection between you two, it might indeed create a stabilizing effect. Lily, have your symptoms improved since you've been spending time with Blake? Lily considered this. I'm still tired, but not as much. And the shadows aren't as scary when Blake is around. Then we may have found your solution, Dr. Cross said. Not a technological buffer, but a human one. 3 weeks after Dr. Cross's revelation, Blake and Lily's bond had deepened into something that transcended traditional relationships. Blake had effectively moved into a suite at the hospital, claiming he needed to be nearby for research purposes, but everyone knew the truth. He couldn't bear to be separated from the remarkable child who'd become the most important person in his world. Their connection had grown stronger too. Blake found he could sense Lily's visions before she spoke them, and sometimes he caught glimpses of the shadows she described, dark shapes that seemed to hover at the edges of his peripheral vision. More importantly, Lily's health had stabilized. Her energy levels were higher, her test results were improving, and for the first time since the accident, she looked like a normal 7-year-old girl. But their biggest test was yet to come. There's something big happening tomorrow, Lily told Blake as they sat in the hospital cafeteria, sharing a chocolate muffin that Blake had smuggled in despite the nutritionist's protests. The biggest thing yet. Blake felt his chest tighten. What kind of big? Lily pulled out her sketchbook and showed him her latest drawing. It depicted a massive building. One Blake recognized immediately as Thornton Technologies headquarters. But in the drawing, the building was tilting, cracks running up its sides, with people streaming out of it in panic. There's going to be an earthquake, Lily said quietly. A bad one. 7.2 magnitude. Epicenter about 12 miles northeast of the city. It hits at 2:43 p.m. during the business day when the building is full. Blake's blood ran cold. His headquarters housed over 3,000 employees across 45 floors. A 7.2 earthquake would be catastrophic. How many? Blake started to ask, then stopped. He didn't want to know the casualty count. Too many, Lily said, understanding his unspoken question. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what happens after. She flipped to another page, showing a scene that made Blake's hands shake. Emergency responders swarming the area, news crews broadcasting live footage of the destruction, and in the corner of the drawing, a small figure lying motionless on a hospital bed. Saving everyone is going to kill me, Lily said matter-of-factly. Even with you helping, it's too big. There are too many threads to change, too many currents to redirect. We don't do it, Blake said immediately. We evacuate the building, call in a bomb threat, pull the fire alarm, anything to get people out without you having to. You don't understand. Lily's mismatched eyes were filled with a sadness that seemed too deep for someone her age. It's not just your building. The earthquake triggers a gas line explosion 6 blocks away. A school bus full of children gets caught in the collapse of the Meridian Bridge. An apartment complex with families inside pancakes when its foundation fails. Blake stared at the drawings, each one more horrific than the last. How many people are we talking about? In the original timeline, 437 dead, over 1,000 injured. But if I can change enough variables, redirect enough probability streams. Lily closed the sketchbook. I can save them all. But I won't survive the effort. No. Blake's voice was firm. There has to be another way. Blake! No! He stood up so quickly that his chair fell backward. Several other diners looked their way, but Blake didn't care. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. Not for anything. Lily's expression was patient, understanding. This is why I was given this gift. Not to save one person here or there, but for moments like this. Hundreds of families get to stay together. Hundreds of people get to keep living their lives. Because I was there to see it coming. And what about your life? What about your future? My future is knowing that all those people have futures. Lily reached across the table and took his hand. Blake, I've seen the world without me in it, and it's brighter than the world where I live, but all those people die. Blake felt tears stinging his eyes, a sensation he hadn't experienced since childhood. There has to be another way. What if I help you? He asked finally. Really help you. Not just sharing the load, but taking on as much of it as I can. Lily shook her head. You're not connected to the shadows the way I am. If you tried to take on too much of the burden, you'd die too. And no one would be saved. Blake's plan was audacious to the point of seeming impossible. Instead of trying to prevent the earthquake or evacuate thousands of people based on an unprovable psychic vision, he decided to create a scenario so unprecedented that it would force the evacuation to happen naturally. Working through the night, Blake liquidated assets, called in favors, and mobilized resources on a scale that would have impressed even his most ambitious competitors. By dawn, he had assembled the largest impromptu tech demonstration in corporate history. "You're doing what?" his CFO, Patricia Vance, asked over the phone, her voice tight with disbelief. "I'm announcing the beta test of our new emergency response AI system," Blake explained, pacing his hospital suite while Lily slept in the adjacent bed. "Every employee, every vendor, every business partner in a 5-mile radius gets invited to participate in a revolutionary real-time disaster simulation starting at noon tomorrow." "Blake, we don't have an emergency response AI system." "We do now. I've had 3 development teams working on it for the past 6 hours. It's crude, but it's functional enough to justify a massive demo." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "This is about that little girl, isn't it? The one you've been visiting?" Blake glanced at Lily's sleeping form, noting how peaceful she looked when she wasn't carrying the weight of future tragedies. "Yes. Blake, I've known you for 8 years. You're many things, but you're not reckless with company resources. If you're doing this, I need you to trust me, Patricia. Send out the invitations. Market it as the biggest tech event of the decade. Make it so exciting that people can't resist attending, but schedule it for the courtyard and parking areas, not inside the building. What about the media? They'll want to know why we're holding a major product launch with 6 hours notice. Tell them Blake Thornton is disrupting the disaster preparedness industry. Tell them I'm beta testing technology that could revolutionize emergency response. Tell them whatever you need to tell them to get people excited about being outside our building at 2:30 p.m. After hanging up, Blake found Lily awake, watching him with those unsettling mismatched eyes. "That's very clever," she said softly. "Create a reason for people to be exactly where they need to be when the earthquake hits." "But what about the other locations? The school bus, the apartment building, the gas line?" Blake sat on the edge of her bed. "That's where your gift comes in. Instead of trying to save everyone through direct intervention, you'll be guiding my emergency response AI. Every alert it sends, every evacuation order it issues will be based on your visions. You want to turn my curse into a computer program? I want to amplify your gift through technology. The AI will have the credibility to issue warnings that people will actually heed. Emergency services will respond to its alerts. And because it's coming from Thornton Technologies systems, it won't be dismissed as the ravings of a psychic child." Lily was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. It could work. But Blake, the energy required to maintain that many simultaneous interventions will be distributed across multiple systems instead of flowing entirely through you. The AI does the heavy lifting, you provide the guidance. Blake took her small hand in his. "It's not perfect, but it's better than you burning yourself out trying to change everything alone. And if it doesn't work?" Blake's grip tightened slightly. "We try something else. But I'm not letting you die tomorrow, Lily. Not for anything." Lily studied his face in the dim hospital lighting, seeing determination that matched her own supernatural resolve. "The shadows are whispering louder now. They know we're planning something they didn't foresee." "Good," Blake said fiercely. "Let them whisper. Tomorrow, we're going to prove that some futures can be rewritten." By 1 p.m. on the day of the predicted earthquake, Blake's hastily organized emergency response AI demonstration had drawn over 5,000 people to the area around Thornton Technologies headquarters. The impromptu event had taken on a life of its own, with food trucks, local news crews, and curious onlookers swelling the crowd far beyond what Blake had anticipated. Inside the hospital, Lily sat connected to a specially modified tablet that interfaced with Blake's emergency AI system. Dr. Cross had helped design the connection, creating what she called a psychic interface that could translate Lily's visions into digital commands. "How are you feeling?" Blake asked, adjusting the sensors that monitored Lily's vital signs. "Scared," Lily admitted. "But not as scared as I would be if I were doing this alone." On the tablet screen, a map of the city displayed thousands of data points, traffic patterns, building occupancy, emergency service locations. Each point could be influenced by the AI system, which would issue alerts, reroute traffic, or coordinate evacuations based on Lily's guidance. "Remember, Dr. Cross said, making final adjustments to the equipment, you're not trying to stop the earthquake. You're just nudging people and resources to be in the right places when it happens. Lily nodded, her small fingers hovering over the tablet. The shadows are getting clearer. I can see all the danger points now. She touched the screen, and immediately, the AI system began issuing its first alerts. A gas leak warning was sent to residents of the Fairview apartments, prompting an evacuation that would clear the building 15 minutes before its foundation failed. A traffic management alert rerouted the school bus carrying 37 children away from Meridian Bridge and onto a safer alternate route. Construction crews working on high-rise projects throughout the city received mandatory brake notifications, getting them away from dangerous equipment. It's working, Blake breathed, watching as thousands of people across the city responded to the AI's guidance without ever knowing they were being shepherded to safety by a 7-year-old girl's supernatural gift. At 2:30 p.m., with 13 minutes to go before the earthquake, Lily's vitals began showing signs of strain. Her heart rate was elevated, her breathing was shallow, and the same translucent quality that had worried Blake before was becoming more pronounced. "Too many streams," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the tablet screen. "There are so many threads to manage." Blake knelt beside her chair, placing his hands over hers on the tablet. "I'm here. We're doing this together." The moment their skin touched, Blake felt the full weight of Lily's burden crash into his consciousness. He saw the probability streams she was manipulating, thousands of delicate threads of cause and effect that required constant adjustment to maintain the desired outcomes. The mental strain was enormous, like trying to conduct a symphony while solving complex mathematical equations. But with Blake sharing the load, Lily's breathing steadied. Her vitals improved. And together, they continued guiding the AI system through its most critical minutes. "Blake," Lily said suddenly, her voice tight with alarm. "There's something else. Something I didn't see before." "What?" "The earthquake. It's going to trigger a secondary event. A smaller quake, but it hits the hospital. This hospital. In exactly 17 minutes after the main event." Blake's blood turned to ice. "How many people are here right now?" 237 patients, plus staff. "The building will partially collapse. The east wing where the children's ward is located." Lily's mismatched eyes found his. "Including us." Blake felt the world spinning around him. They'd been so focused on saving everyone else, they hadn't considered their own safety. "We evacuate. Right now." "There isn't time. Some of the patients can't be moved safely. The premature babies in the NICU, the post-surgical patients, the people on life support." Lily closed her eyes. "In the original timeline, 43 people die. The AI system, we can use it to coordinate another evacuation." "I'm too weak," Lily whispered. "I can barely keep my eyes open. I don't have enough left to guide another major intervention." At 2:43 p.m. exactly, the earthquake struck. The 7.2 magnitude earthquake was everything Lily had predicted: violent, devastating, and merciless. But where her original vision had shown chaos and death, their carefully orchestrated plan unfolded with miraculous precision. 0 fatalities. 23 minor injuries. 437 people who should have died were alive. But Lily was fading fast, and the secondary earthquake was coming. The 7.2 magnitude earthquake that struck the city at 2:43 p.m. was everything Lily had predicted. Violent, devastating, and merciless. Buildings swayed like trees in a hurricane, windows shattered in glittering cascades, and the ground itself seemed to rebel against the structures humans had built upon it. But where Lily's original vision had shown chaos and death, Blake watched through the hospital's reinforced windows as their carefully orchestrated plan unfolded with miraculous precision. The crowd gathered around Thornton Technologies headquarters, nearly 6,000 people who should have been inside various buildings throughout the city screamed and scattered as the skyscraper swayed dangerously. But they were alive, in open space, away from falling debris. Emergency responders, prepositioned based on the AI's predictive algorithms, were on scene within minutes. Blake's phone buzzed constantly with updates from his emergency AI system. Fairview Apartments, complete evacuation successful. Building collapse at 2:44 p.m. 0 casualties. Meridian Bridge. Traffic successfully rerouted. Structural failure at 2:46 p.m. No vehicles on bridge at time of collapse. Downtown construction sites, all personnel evacuated to safety zones. Equipment failures throughout district. 0 fatalities. Look, Lily whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. On the tablet screen, a real-time casualty counter showed numbers that defied belief: 23 injuries, mostly minor cuts and bruises from falling glass. 0 fatalities. In the original timeline, 437 people should have died. We did it, Blake said, his voice thick with emotion. We actually did it. But even as he spoke, he noticed Lily slumping in her chair. The effort of coordinating so many simultaneous interventions had taken a tremendous toll. Her skin was nearly translucent now, and Blake could swear he could see through her to the chair behind. Lily, stay with me, he said, checking her pulse. It was weak and irregular. Dr. Cross rushed over with her medical equipment. Her vitals are crashing. It's like her entire system is shutting down. But we shared the load, Blake protested. The plan worked, she wasn't supposed to it. Blake, Lily interrupted softly. The earthquake was just the beginning. With trembling fingers, she opened her sketchbook to a page Blake had never seen before. The drawing showed the hospital they were currently in, but the building was tilted at an impossible angle, medical equipment scattered, and patients trapped in the wreckage. The main earthquake triggered a secondary fault line, Lily explained, her voice barely audible. A smaller quake, 5.8 magnitude, hits this hospital in 17 minutes. The building wasn't designed to handle even moderate activity after the structural stress from the first earthquake. Blake felt the world spinning around him. How many people are in the hospital right now? 237 patients plus staff. The building will collapse partially. The east wing where the children's ward is located. Lily's mismatched eyes found his. Including us. We evacuate. Right now. There isn't time. Some of the patients can't be moved safely. The premature babies in the NICU, the post-surgical patients, the people on life support. Lily closed her eyes. In the original timeline, 43 people die. Blake's mind raced. The AI system, we can use it to coordinate another evacuation. I'm too weak, Lily whispered. I can barely keep my eyes open. I don't have enough left to guide another major intervention. Blake looked at the child who had become his entire world, seeing her fade before his eyes, and made a decision that surprised even him. Don't guide it, he said firmly. Transfer it. What? You said the connection we share lets me see. Dr. Cross looked up from her instruments. Blake, that's theoretically possible, but we don't know what it would do to you. The energy requirements. I don't care, Blake interrupted. Lily, can you do it? Can you give me your gift? Lily stared at him with those ancient, mismatched eyes. It would kill you. Your mind isn't built to handle the probability streams directly. And even if you survive the transfer, using the gift would burn you out just like it's burning me out. But I could save the people in this hospital? Yes, but do it. What happened next defied every law of physics Dr. Cross thought she understood. Lily placed her small, translucent hands on Blake's temples. And suddenly the hospital room filled with an otherworldly energy that made the air itself shimmer. Blake's vision exploded into fragments of possibility. He saw every person in the hospital simultaneously, witnessed their futures branching into thousands of potential outcomes, felt the weight of choices that could mean the difference between life and death. But unlike Lily's gradual introduction to her gift through trauma and unconsciousness, Blake received the full force of cosmic awareness all at once. His body convulsed as his mind tried to process information it was never designed to handle. He saw through walls, through time, through the very fabric of reality itself. Blake! Dr. Cross shouted, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. In the space between heartbeats, Blake found himself standing in what Lily called the spaces between seconds, a gray, twilight realm where the shadows she'd always spoken about were revealed as vast, ancient intelligences that existed outside normal time and space. Welcome, Blake Thornton, they whispered in voices like wind through abandoned buildings. The child has chosen to pass her burden to you. Are you prepared to become what she has been? I'm prepared to save the people in that hospital, Blake replied, surprised by how steady his voice sounded in this impossible place. That is not what we asked. Are you prepared to see death approaching everyone you care about? Are you prepared to carry the weight of knowledge that will isolate you from normal human experience? Are you prepared to sacrifice yourself piece by piece to preserve the lives of strangers? Blake thought of Lily, brilliant, compassionate, doomed Lily who had been carrying this burden alone for months. If she can do it, so can I. The child was born to this. You are choosing it. The cost may be higher than you know. Let me pay it. The shadows swirled around him, and Blake felt Lily's gift, her curse, her blessing, her impossible burden flow into him like liquid fire. Every nerve in his body screamed as his consciousness expanded to encompass probability streams he'd never conceived. He saw the secondary earthquake approaching in 13 minutes, witnessed the cascade of structural failures it would trigger, felt the terror of patients who would be trapped beneath tons of concrete and steel. But he also saw the solutions. When Blake's awareness snapped back to the hospital room, Lily had collapsed in her chair, but she was smiling. For the first time since the accident that changed her life, she looked like a normal 7-year-old child, pale and exhausted, but human. Blake, however, had been transformed. His piercing blue eyes now held depths that hadn't been there before, and when he looked at Dr. Cross, she had the unsettling sensation that he was seeing far more than just her physical form. 11 minutes, Blake said, his voice carrying an odd harmonic that seemed to echo from somewhere beyond the physical world. I can save them all, but I need you to help coordinate the evacuation. Without waiting for a response, Blake picked up Lily's tablet and began issuing commands to his AI system with supernatural precision. Every alert was perfectly timed, every evacuation order strategically planned to move people out of danger zones while ensuring that critical patients received the care they needed during the transition. How are you doing this? Dr. Cross asked, watching in amazement as Blake orchestrated the evacuation of an entire hospital with the efficiency of someone who could see the future. I can see all the threads now, Blake replied, his fingers flying across the tablet screen. Every choice, every consequence, every moment where a single decision determines whether someone lives or dies. But even as he spoke, Dr. Cross noticed the same translucent quality beginning to appear in Blake's skin that had marked Lily's deterioration. The gift was already beginning to consume him. Blake, Lily said weakly from her chair. You're changing. I can see it happening. Blake glanced at his hands, noting how they seemed less solid than they had moments before. I know, but I can see the end now. 43 lives, that's what this costs. 43 people get to go home to their families because I made different choices than the ones fate had planned. There has to be another way, Dr. Cross protested. Blake's transformed eyes fixed on hers with infinite sadness. I've seen every possible outcome. Trust me, I've looked. This is the only timeline where everyone else survives. The building began to tremble as the secondary earthquake approached, and Blake returned his attention to the tablet, guiding the final evacuations with the desperate precision of someone racing against both time and his own mortality. The secondary earthquake struck at exactly 3 p.m., just as Blake had predicted. But by then, every patient who could be safely moved had been evacuated to temporary shelters in the hospital's parking garage. Those who couldn't be moved, the NICU babies, the surgical patients, the critically ill, had been relocated to the building's most structurally sound areas based on Blake's uncanny knowledge of which parts of the hospital would survive the collapse. Blake himself remained in the children's ward with Lily and a skeleton crew of medical staff, guiding the final stages of the evacuation through his psychic link to the AI system. As the building shook around them, he made split-second decisions that saved lives with surgical precision. Nurse Chin, move Mrs. Patterson to room 203. Her current room is directly below a support beam that's about to fail, he called out, never taking his eyes off the tablet. Dr. Martinez, you have 90 seconds to get the premature twins to the parking garage before the elevator shaft becomes unsafe. The hospital staff had stopped questioning Blake's seemingly impossible knowledge and were following his instructions with the trust of people who had seen miracles happen. One by one, they evacuated patients who would have died in the original timeline. But with each life saved, Blake grew weaker. The translucent quality of his skin became more pronounced, and Dr. Cross noticed that sometimes she could see through him to the wall behind. Blake, Lily said from her wheelchair, her voice stronger now that she was no longer carrying her terrible burden. You're fading just like I was. I know, Blake replied, his voice distant. But I can see the end now. Every person who needs to be saved, every choice that needs to be made. It's like conducting an orchestra where every note determines whether someone lives or dies. The building shuddered as the secondary earthquake reached its peak intensity. Cracks appeared in the walls and the lights flickered ominously. But Blake's evacuation plan held. Every person who could be saved had been moved to safety. There's just one problem, Blake said, looking up from the tablet for the first time in 20 minutes. What? Dr. Cross asked, though she dreaded the answer. Blake's blue eyes, now filled with an otherworldly light, fixed on hers. In every probability stream I can see, one person doesn't make it out of this building. The person who stays behind to ensure the final evacuation happens correctly. Dr. Cross felt her blood run cold. Blake, no. There has to be another way. I've seen every possible outcome, Blake said gently. Trust me, I've looked through thousands of probability threads. This is the only timeline where everyone else survives. Lily struggled to stand from her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. I won't let you die for me. This is my fault. I should never have transferred my gift to you. Blake knelt beside her, taking her small hands in his nearly transparent ones. Lily, listen to me. Do you remember what you told me about why you chose to come back from the accident? About how every life you save gets to keep living, loving, making the world better? She nodded, unable to speak. You were right. It is worth something. It's worth everything. Blake looked around the damaged hospital room, seeing not destruction but the 43 lives that would continue because of their choices. I used to think my life was about building technology, making money, leaving some kind of legacy in the business world. But this, he gestured to encompass everything they'd accomplished. This is the only thing I've ever done that truly mattered. The building groaned ominously and Blake stood up, his form becoming more translucent by the moment. Dr. Cross, take Lily and go. The final structural collapse happens in 3 minutes. I need to make sure the emergency systems stay online long enough for the last ambulance to clear the area. Blake, Dr. Cross started. Go. Blake commanded, and for a moment his voice carried the authority of someone who could see the threads of fate themselves. Dr. Cross grabbed Lily's wheelchair and began pushing toward the exit, but Lily twisted around to look back at Blake one more time. Will I see you again? She called out. Blake smiled, and for a moment he looked like the young billionaire who had walked into a hospital lobby months ago. In all the good futures, Lily. In every timeline where people get to be happy. Blake stood alone in the children's ward as the hospital groaned around him like a dying giant. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the last ambulance pulling away from the building, carrying the final evacuees to safety. 43 lives that would have been lost were now secure, but the cost was becoming clear with each passing second. His body was no longer entirely solid. Blake could see through his own hands to the tablet he still held, its screen displaying the final countdown to structural collapse. 2 minutes and 17 seconds remaining. The shadows that Lily had always spoken of were visible to him now, not as harbingers of death, but as witnesses to sacrifice. They swirled around him like ancient guardians, their whispered voices carrying a strange comfort. You have chosen well, Blake Thornton. The pattern is broken. No more children will bear this burden alone. What do you mean? Blake asked aloud, his voice echoing strangely in the empty ward. The gift transforms when given freely without coercion or desperation. What was once a curse born of trauma becomes a blessing born of love. The child will live normally now, and others like her will find different paths. Blake felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. So this ends with me? Not ends. Transforms. Your sacrifice creates ripples that will save lives for generations to come. The technology you built, the connections you forged, the love you showed, these things will outlive your physical form. Through the tablet's interface, Blake could see the city beyond the hospital. Emergency responders were already coordinating relief efforts using his AI system. The technology that had started as a desperate gambit to save Lily was now being implemented across the globe, a lasting legacy that would prevent countless tragedies. But more than that, Blake could see the individual lives he'd touched. Lily would grow up to become a brilliant scientist, using her experience to help other children who'd suffered trauma. Dr. Cross would continue her research into consciousness and quantum fields, eventually developing technologies that would revolutionize medicine. Even Nurse Chun would be inspired to pursue advanced training, becoming a pediatric specialist who would save hundreds of young lives. The ripple effects of his choice spread out like waves across the ocean of time. 1 minute remaining. Blake set down the tablet and walked to the window, looking out at the city he'd helped save. Somewhere out there, 437 people were going home to their families tonight instead of lying in morgues. Children would grow up with their parents. Spouses would grow old together. Grandparents would see their grandchildren take their first steps. The building shuddered violently, and Blake felt the floor beginning to tilt beneath his feet. But instead of fear, he felt only gratitude. Gratitude for meeting Lily, for discovering that his life could mean something beyond profit margins and stock prices. Gratitude for learning that love was indeed the only magic that truly mattered. 30 seconds. Blake closed his eyes and thought of Lily's mismatched eyes, full of ancient wisdom and childlike hope. He thought of her drawings, her courage, her willingness to sacrifice everything for strangers. She had taught him what it meant to be truly human. The shadows gathered around him one final time, their voices harmonizing in something that sounded almost like a lullaby. Rest now, Guardian. Your watch is ended. Others will carry the light forward. Blake smiled as the building began its final collapse. Through the quantum field that connected all things, he could feel Lily's presence, safe, healthy, and free from the burden that had nearly destroyed her. She would live a full life, surrounded by love and purpose. That knowledge was worth everything. The last thing Blake saw before the darkness claimed him was a brilliant flash of golden light, warm and welcoming, carrying him toward whatever came next for those who chose love over fear, sacrifice over selfishness. He was no longer afraid. The collapse of Thornton Technologies Memorial Hospital's East Wing made international headlines, but not for the reasons anyone expected. Instead of a tragedy claiming dozens of lives, it became known as the miracle evacuation, a testament to cutting-edge emergency response technology and one man's heroic sacrifice. The official report credited Blake Thornton's revolutionary AI system with orchestrating the most successful disaster response in modern history. 0 casualties from a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, followed by a flawless hospital evacuation that saved 237 lives. The technology was immediately adopted by emergency services worldwide. Only a handful of people knew the whole truth. Dr. Evelyn Cross stood in the ruins of the children's ward 3 days after the collapse, searching for any trace of Blake Thornton's remains. The rescue teams had found nothing. No body, no personal effects, nothing to indicate that anyone had been in the building when it fell. It's like he just vanished, the lead investigator told her. The security cameras show him in the ward right up until the moment of collapse, but after that, he shrugged helplessly. Dr. Cross nodded, unsurprised. She'd been studying quantum consciousness long enough to know that some transformations transcended physical laws. Blake hadn't simply died in the collapse, he'd been transformed by the same forces that had once threatened to consume Lily. Speaking of Lily, the child had made a remarkable recovery. Her test results showed no trace of the mysterious condition that had been slowly killing her. Her mismatched eyes still held unusual depth, but the haunted quality was gone, replaced by the natural curiosity of a healthy 7-year-old. Where did Blake go? Lily asked during one of Dr. Cross's visits. They sat in the temporary children's ward, watching other kids play games that Lily could finally participate in without the weight of supernatural knowledge crushing her spirit. I think he went where all the saved futures go, Dr. Cross replied carefully. Somewhere beyond what we can see or measure. Lily nodded as if this made perfect sense. He's happy there. I can feel it sometimes, like sunshine on my face when there aren't any clouds. The memorial service for Blake Thornton drew thousands of mourners, from tech industry leaders to hospital staff who'd witnessed his final hours. Patricia Vance, his former CFO, had taken over Thornton Technologies and established the Blake Thornton Foundation for Emergency Response Innovation. But perhaps the most meaningful tribute came from an unexpected source. The families of the 437 people who would have died in the earthquake, people who had no idea how close they'd come to tragedy, began experiencing what psychologists called gratitude dreams. They would wake up with inexplicable feelings of thankfulness, as if someone had saved their lives while they slept. Children drew pictures of a man in a blue suit watching over them. Spouses hugged each other tighter without knowing why. Parents spent extra time with their kids, driven by an unconscious awareness of how precious each moment truly was. The ripple effects of Blake's sacrifice spread far beyond the immediate lives he'd saved. His story inspired a new generation of technologists to focus on humanitarian applications. Medical researchers doubled their efforts to understand consciousness and healing. Emergency responders around the world trained with renewed dedication, knowing that their work honored the memory of someone who'd given everything to protect strangers. Love, it seemed, was indeed the only magic that truly mattered, and its effects could be felt across time and space, touching lives in ways that defied explanation but never failed to inspire hope. 6 months later, Lily Winters stood in the lobby of the newly rebuilt Thornton Technologies headquarters, no longer a patient but an honored guest at the dedication ceremony for the Blake Thornton Memorial Emergency Response Institute. The official story was that Blake had died heroically during the earthquake, staying behind to coordinate evacuations until the very last moment. The miraculous fact that both earthquakes had resulted in minimal casualties was attributed to his revolutionary AI system technology that was now being implemented in cities around the world. Only a few people knew the whole truth: Dr. Cross, who had witnessed the impossible transfer of supernatural abilities, Nurse Chin, who had seen Lily's drawings come to life, and Lily herself, who carried the secret of what Blake had truly sacrificed. Lily no longer saw death shadows. Blake's acceptance of her gift had somehow purified it, transforming a curse born of trauma into a blessing that could be passed along without destroying its bearer. She was, finally, just a normal 7-year-old girl, except for the wisdom in her mismatched eyes and the way she sometimes smiled at empty air, as if she could see something wonderful that others missed. "Do you miss it?" Dr. Cross asked as they watched the ceremony from the back of the crowd. "Your ability to see the future?" Lily considered this, twirling one of her copper curls around her finger, a gesture that reminded Dr. Cross painfully of Blake. "Sometimes. But Blake was right, some gifts are meant to be given away. And besides," she smiled that knowing smile again, "I can still see the most important thing." "What's that?" "All the people who are alive today because someone chose to love them more than they loved their own life." Lily pointed to a family in the crowd, parents with 2 young children, laughing at something one of the kids had said. "That man worked on the 40th floor of this building. Blake's evacuation saved him. Those children get to grow up with their father." She pointed to another group. "That woman was in the apartment building that collapsed. She's getting married next month because she lived to meet her fiancé. Her future husband is here too. He was one of the construction workers Blake warned." As Lily continued pointing out people whose lives had been saved by Blake's sacrifice, Dr. Cross began to understand. The gift hadn't really transferred from Lily to Blake, it had transformed. Instead of seeing death approaching, Lily now saw life continuing. Instead of witnessing tragedy, she witnessed the ripple effects of heroism. "Is he at peace?" Dr. Cross asked quietly. Lily's smile grew brighter. "Oh yes. He's in the place where all the saved futures go. And sometimes, when I'm very quiet, I can hear him laughing." As if summoned by her words, a warm breeze stirred through the lobby despite the closed doors, carrying with it the faint scent of autumn leaves and the sound of children playing somewhere far away. For just a moment, Dr. Cross could have sworn she saw a familiar figure in an azure suit standing beside Lily, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. When she blinked, the figure was gone. But Lily was looking up at the exact spot where Dr. Cross thought she'd seen him, her mismatched eyes bright with joy. "Thank you," Lily whispered to the empty air, "for showing me that love is the only magic that really matters." In the years that followed, Lily Winters would grow up to become Dr. Lily Thornton Winters. She legally added Blake's name to honor his memory. One of the world's leading researchers in predictive algorithms and emergency response systems. She would save thousands more lives through technology and innovation. But she would never again carry the supernatural burden of seeing death approach. That gift had died with Blake Thornton, transformed in his final moments from a curse that consumed its bearer into a blessing that saved the world. One person, one choice, one act of love at a time. And sometimes late at night in her laboratory, Lily would pause in her work and smile at nothing, as if she could see a young billionaire with piercing blue eyes and a talent for making the impossible happen, watching over all the futures his sacrifice had made possible. The shadows no longer whispered of death. Instead, they sang of life, love, and the extraordinary things that happen when someone chooses to believe that every person is worth saving, even if it costs them everything. In the end, Blake Thornton had discovered the truth that Lily had tried to teach him from the very beginning. Some things are worth any sacrifice, and love, true, selfless love, is the most powerful force in any universe.